Welcome to the channel. The coin world has always carried myths, legends, treasure hunts, attic discoveries, bankroll jackpots, midnight auction wars, and kitchen table dreams. But the rare coin story that shook collectors to their core began when the concept of coin errors collided with American history, especially around the fascination with Abraham Lincoln appearing on U.S. cents that circulated for decades, setting the stage for modern collecting culture fueled by platforms like YouTube, where coin chasers, treasure narrators, and lucky finders share emotional roller coasters that inspire millions. Yet out of all pennies minted across eras, decades, alloys, and minting transitions, one piece became the heartbeat of speculation and obsession, a 1972 no-mint mark 1 cent USA coin that whispers scarcity, mystery, and value. 1 cent struck without markings that usually would signal origins from mints such as Denver Mint or San Francisco Mint, a cent born at a time when automation, mechanical feed trays, aging hubs, double die misalignments, planchet mix-ups, blank mint mark anomalies, and die abrasion became pregnant with imperfection, but collectors were not prepared for the day a brown, copper-coated disc measuring the familiar 19.05 mm diameter, 2.5 grams approximate mass, 1 cent face value, smooth raised rim, clad in history and circulating pockets, would end up being rumored, discussed, and emotionally valued into the multi-million category, with claims hitting a face value of $14 million, not because the coin denomination was high, but because rarity, errors, human psychology, speculative markets, auction theatrics, and story power built it into a symbolic $14 million marvel, shaping one of the most captivating chapters in numismatic culture. For in 1972, the U.S. was humming with industrial evolution, the Cold War narrative still looming, space race ambitions, American cars roaring, glass bottles on dining tables, pay phones ringing, jukeboxes humming sounds from artists like Elvis Presley, and the double die phenomenon quietly gaining cult status among collectors who began studying doubled inscriptions, shifted serifs, stacked numbers, and extra outlines around the word liberty or date digits, later recognized and authenticated by grading and verification bodies like PCGS, an organization that would one day come to define what coins were ordinary and what coins were champions. For around 1972, mint marks were not consistently struck for all facilities, leading to cents that appear without a mint mark, typically signaling origin from the primary mint, Philadelphia Mint. But the lack of any mint mark combined with certain coveted era characteristics fueled passion and speculation, especially when people realized that rare pennies could quietly slip from first-owner mint bags into bank drawers and cash registers across diners, grocery stores, hardware shops, barbershops, laundromats, gas stations, comic book counters, and farmers' market stalls where produce like apples and peanuts were sold by weight, not labels, until decades later when digital platforms like Google allowed everyday people to ask questions in seconds that older collectors once researched for years, including questions like, "Is my 1972 penny valuable?" And that question opened Pandora's box, unleashing the legend of the 1972 no-mint mark cent. For some collectors began tying its value not to denomination but to historical magnitude, minting volatility, and era symbolism. A coin worth $14 million in mythic value echoed across forums, online auctions resembling the frenzy of eBay, where bids for rare coins turned into digital battlegrounds and adrenaline theaters where one photograph could mean mortgage freedom or heartbreak. And while mainstream pocket change continued flowing through American commerce, a shadow economy of collectors began inspecting cents under desk lamps, magnifying loupes from Bosch and Loam Hastings triplet in hand, pairing curiosity with optical precision as they hunted for doubled rims, ghost profiles, misaligned dates, reverse design shifts, die scratches, missing mint marks, and circulation anomalies that spoke louder than the coin's humble face value. For the 1972 cent was not a high mintage year of ultra-rarity in standard form. But when isolated specimens appeared without mint marks and carried error claims, the market imagination expanded its value potential. Especially when stories spread of people discovering coins that later sold for life-changing sums, stories amplified by creators who analyzed coins at length in thousands-word discussions, but the 1972 no-mint mark cent stood out because it represented a powerful era and era type overlap, for the planchet preparation process in minting factories sometimes mixed or flawed, leading to cents struck on planchets with minor anomalies in coating, rim width, or hub stamping pressure, and when these discs met misaligned hubs or worn dies, doubling effects occurred, especially noticeable on the 1972 doubled die obverse Type 1 variety, recognized as one of the strongest double-date varieties in Lincoln cent history. So while a no-mint mark penny from 1972 in standard form may not logically hit $14 million in absolute market value, the speculative culture that formed around era coins created a folklore value of $14 million worth big money in history, not as a government authorized denomination but as a numismatic valuation claim echoing through modern collecting culture, where historical rumor meets auction data, psychological value, and collector demand, for coins live multiple lives, first in mint bags stacked on pallets humming inside armored vault rooms belonging to the minting chain, next in bank drawers clinking beside nickels and dimes, occasionally dropping into donation trays at town fairs where bands played faded covers of American classics, then resting in cigar boxes, coin albums like the famous Whitman Classic Coin Album, Ziploc bags, velvet trays in local businesses where clerks unknowingly handled potential treasures, and finally the coin escalates into legend when discovered decades later beneath a magnifier resting on hands trembling with hope, for the coin-era universe rewards imperfection, where missing mint marks are not absence but opportunity, where doubling is not duplication but revelation, where a 1 cent face value coin gains $14 million storytelling wings not from original design but from fate, scarcity, auction theatrics, and collector obsession, for the 1972 no-mint mark 1 cent USA coin symbolizes an era when manufacturing jerked hands with humanity, automation hesitated, dies aged visibly, hub alignments slipped. Minting staffs performed triple shift nights fueling production quotas that eventually gifted coins with imperfections collectors now crave. And while coin grading modernized into precise certification, people still remember stories when Rare Coin World magazine hyped breakthrough discoveries, or when dealers from coin networks like P&G debated values behind closed doors like poker deals where copper discs replace cards, yet the coin world culture now belongs to the people, fueled by digital virality, serialized storytelling, emotional hooks, sensational claims, and life-changing dreams that a piece of pocket change might carry the weight of millions. A coin representing 1972 without mint identification becoming a modern mascot of market imagination and era-driven wealth rumors that crown it into the $14 million tier echoed by coin sellers offering listings with phrases like ultra-rare penny, no mint mark dream coin, USA 1 cent era historical value, 14 million face value mythic penny. Although advanced collectors know face value is not literal government denomination but a collector valuation phrase representing potential selling price or folklore market value, yet that folklore became power more valuable than numbers alone, for the 1972 penny without mint mark speaks to the heart of American coin psychology, for people dream through small objects, for treasure always hides in plain sight. For the coin sat at a junction in history long before social media, before hashtags or virality. When coin collectors formed societies like the famed American Numismatic Association hosting exhibitions where historical pennies rested beneath glass like sleeping artifacts, but none gained modern viral muscle like era coins that passed through circulation undetected until today's digital age unleashed valuations speculated into millions, valuations discussed beside authentication hopes from services under Instagram where coin photos spread like constellations, valuations supported by decades of collectible coin trade, the fascination with errors, the emotional possibility of discovering a jackpot hidden in the smallest U.S. denomination, valuations hyped by sellers on specialized numismatic markets like great collections where coins battles unfold weekly, or auction energy paralleling high-stakes market psychology, for coin values do not rise solely from mintage counts, metal, or denomination, but from condition, story prestige, market mythology, era strength, certification judgment, collector demand, and narrative power amplified through digital altars like YouTube where millions of eyes meet a 1 cent copper disc, hoping it carries the faintest trace of die doubling or minting omission validated into ultra-value tiers, not just as metal but as legend, for coins connect decades, link human hopes, create treasure pilgrimages, and forge digital sagas that transformed the 1972 no-mint Mark 1 cent into a mythical $14 million era. Symbol among rare coin stories, for collectors now scan coins from pocket change the way fishermen once scanned the horizon, believing rarity hides in simplicity, for the 1-cent coin is America's most handled artifact, touched by children buying candies like gum once sold under brands like Wrigley, or adults collecting change beside half-dollars showing presidents like John F. Kennedy. But the 1972 penny rose because it satisfied the perfect emotional math, a coin everyone owns, an error some might miss, a value claim dramatic enough to move hearts, an American historical era interesting enough to narrate, and a treasure possibility humble enough to inspire millions, for whether you're a seasoned loop holder scanning pennies under LED glare or someone holding your first cent from 1972, the coin era universe is a lottery where expertise increases odds but fate picks winners. And the 1972 no-mint Mark cent earned its legend not because it was originally printed with a $14 million legal tender approval, but because collectors use face value claims to represent collector valuation, selling estimates, or folklore marketeers, and this coin stands as one of the most storied of those collector valuation claims woven into era coin culture. For coins minted at facilities like the Philadelphia Mint sometimes skipped mint marks internally, while certain era varieties like doubled dies or planchet flaws amplified the mystique, and while the literal denomination never read $14 million, the market imagination crowned it into that league alongside stories when rare pennies and era coins from U.S. history fetched million-dollar prices validated by grading companies, emotional auctions, and collector showdowns that shape America's most irresistible coin sagas, especially when collectors began framing penny eras not just as hobbies but as wealth bridges, generational handshakes, collector jackpots, pop culture myth-making, and emotional gold mines that turned invisible minting slips into visible dreams, for the coin from 1972 carries one of the most repeated valuations claims within collector storytelling, that it symbolizes a $14 million face value tier. Worth big money. In the folklore of rare era coins, talked about in the same breath as famous rare pennies, conversations tied to authentication dreams and selling possibilities that older collectors researched in dusty library stacks and modern collectors verify in seconds through Google searches or auctions, live rooms like eBay or great collections or graded judgment rooms like PCGS. For coin collecting has moved from vault silence into digital roar, from dealer whispers into public adrenaline, from loop lenses into smartphone macros, from low denomination into high valuation dreams, from metal discs into emotional roller coasters, from mintmark omission into jackpot possibilities, from 1972 into forever legend. And now that I've got your attention, if you ever want to sell rare and era coins, you can explore marketplaces like eBay, visit local dealers who are members of P&G, or consider online auctions like Great Collections or Great Collections. But one thing is universal: knowledge is profit, magnifier is your compass, story is your currency, error is your advantage, rarity is your jackpot, and 1 cent is your gateway into millions. So start checking your change today, because history has already placed treasures in circulation long before we began searching for them. And if you're here listening to this copper-coated legend, then you already know coins aren't just money, they're secret chapters of American history, lottery tickets minted in metal, mechanical poetry struck by flawed hubs, real wealth hidden behind small denominations, and the 1972 no-mint Mark 1 cent USA coin is one of the greatest folklore million value claims in that numismatic universe. So smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, start checking your pennies, and tell me in the comments if you own a 1972 penny, because the next $14 million coin story might begin in your hands. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, join the hunt, and keep collecting. Next, 1964 1 cent USA coin. The coin story that refused to fade from history began long before digital virality, in the era when a single cent could silently travel the entire economic bloodstream of America, bouncing from soda counters, community banks, Christmas envelopes, taxicab cup holders, denim pockets, jukebox change slots, bus ticket machines, school cafeteria lines, comic book shops, arcade token counters, local newspaper stands, farmers bargaining for crops, garage sale tables, roadside flea markets, church donation trays, county fairs, museum-like exhibitions inside community halls, and collector conventions that later became iconic under global institutions like the American Numismatic Association. Yet nothing prepared the world for the folklore valuation that became gospel among treasure seekers and era coin believers when the 1964 1-cent USA coin without a mint mark stepped into spotlight, a normal denomination, 1-cent legal tender, but a not normal destiny, a coin tied to the legacy of Lyndon B. Johnson signing major economic acts that shaped U.S. spending confidence, a period when Ford Mustang had just been launched capturing American horsepower dreams, when the songs of the Beatles dominated record players, when astronauts trained for lunar ambition under NASA, when America smelled of printed newspapers, gasoline pumps clicking under Texaco signage, milk bottles clinking, typewriters hammering, transistor radios playing daytime baseball commentary. For teams like the legendary New York Yankees that defined American sports empire, and amid all this cultural thunder, the minting floors of the United States Treasury mints were running full steam, churning out billions of cents primarily from the main hub mint in Philadelphia, a facility referenced in collecting circles simply as the Philadelphia Mint, where coins struck without mint marks were normal for that facility's output but abnormal in the drama they later triggered, for 1964 pennies. Circulated with no mint mark by standard design for Philadelphia strikes, meaning most were never meant to carry a mint mark at all. Yet collectors decades later weaponized the absence of the mint mark not as a geographical identifier but as a treasure myth trigger when combined with era coin psychology and rare coin narrative inflation, creating valuation waves that rivaled stock market fever around tickers like Apple decades into future imagination where technology later empowered collectors to check value instantly. But in the 1964 era, valuation was built by humanity, not algorithms, for during this minting year, the mint was focused on production output to satisfy national demand caused by a coin shortage panic that erupted when the public began hoarding coins, especially silver issues like dimes and quarters, forcing the mint to churn cents at astronomical numbers while simultaneously denying collectors the joy of mint mark variations on cents from Denver and San Francisco to reduce public confusion and hoarding interest. But fate has a rebellious sense of humor, for mass mintage always hides micro-rarities, manufacturing always births mechanical poetry, double dies always wink at magnifiers, planchet flaws always carry mutant fingerprints, and mint mark omissions always get romanticized into treasure archetypes by future generations of collectors scanning cents under magnifying loupes modeled after optical titans like Bosch and Loam Hastings triplet or digital USB microscopes resembling tools from Dinolite used in today's authentication culture, for coin grading and valuation eventually formalized into institutions like PCGS where coins whisper truth beneath plastic slabs, but folklore always grows louder than fact. For the 1964 no mint mark cent became a mythic candidate for million value stories not because it was engineered to be rare in its standard form, but because the era's coin shortage pressures, coupled with the fact that era coins from 1964 occasionally displayed double die effects on the obverse or reverse, or struck planchet surface anomalies caused by mixed or flawed coin blanks during the planchet punching stage, allowed isolated specimens to become narrative jet fuel. Collectors began noticing minor doubling around 8 digits, especially the strong double die variety on some 1964 pennies that created extra outlines around digits, or letters from the inscription "In God We Trust" or "Liberty" showing split serifs or shadow layers. But the literal face value printed on the coin always remained 1 cent, yet the collector valuation claim exploded into a symbolic $18 million folklore tier, face value, used not as legal tender designation but as a storytelling synonym for estimated selling value, folklore valuation, or dream auction category that spread through coin forums, private dealer conversations, thrift store cashier discoveries, estate liquidation rumors, vault drama speculation, live auction adrenaline. Especially at selling altars like the premium auction house Great Collections where modern coin wars unfold weekly, But the 1964 pennies legend was molded by history, psychology, adrenaline, imperfection, collector, tribal myth-making, scarcity, romance, and the idea that your smallest change could secretly be your biggest financial plot twist. For coin culture feeds on possibility, not just statistics. For although 1964 pennies were minted in the billions, one of the highest mintage years in the Lincoln cent series, that high mintage paradoxically creates the illusion that rarity must exist somewhere among the noise, like finding a white feather in a snowstorm, a four-leaf clover in a football field, a diamond ring in beach sand, a gold coin in a pirate's chest, or a double-die penny in pocket change. For the psychology of coin collecting is a cathedral built on the belief that the most valuable treasures hide in the most handled objects. For the 1964 no-mint mark cent journey through moments when Americans pulled coins from Coca-Cola machines once produced by beverage giants like Coca-Cola, when hardware change clinked beside tool purchases at stores resembling the mid-century empire of Sears, when children spent cents on bubble gum under brands like Wrigley, when families stored coins in linen drawers, when soldiers carried change during deployments, when birthday cakes were accompanied by envelope gifts sometimes holding pennies from 1964 as luck charms, when stationery shops sold greeting cards paid for by pocket change, when barbers accepted coins from customers reading newspapers printed by the Washington Post at the time filled with Cold War ink and American politics, when television sets flickered black and white screens produced by appliance giants like RCA that filled American living rooms, when diners poured coffee into ceramic mugs resembling craftsmanship aesthetic later sold on marketplaces like ceramic mugs decades later in future commerce. Parallels where coin collectors also sell via digital storefronts, when cars fueled by Texaco filled stations and pennies exchanged hands beneath neon signs, when coin albums like the famous Whitman Classic Coin Album did not yet exist in every home but later generations used them to immortalize these cents into long-term collections. For coin rarity stories do not anchor solely to mintage counts but to extreme condition anomalies such as coins that survived circulation in uncirculated mint state 68 or 69, sometimes 70 grades, or coins that exhibited strong double-die errors, or coins struck on experimental or flawed planchets revealing surface rippling, edge expansion, or hub pressure echoing misalignment that grading companies today might authenticate if a specimen warrants professional evaluation. For the 1964 penny became a folklore colossus not because it carried the literal legal denomination of $18 million printed by the mint, but because collectors used symbolic valuation language like face value or worth to express estimated selling price or dream folklore tier valuations that spread like wildfire, especially when auctions for rare USA coins began generating 6 to 7 figure selling precedents other decades and issues not this penny in literal guarantee but in inspirational parallel narratives where era coins from older US history occasionally sold for million-dollar prices at auction houses or via verification by PNG dealers or graded by PCGS. Collector psychology inflated 1964 into $18 million conversation status, for treasure culture cannot resist drama. For some of the most explosive rare coin auction battles ever discussed happened at platforms like eBay or premium coin auction houses like Great Collections or coins authenticated by PCGS or sold by dealers belonging to PNG Guild networks where speculation meets verification hope. But what made 1964 special in penny mythology was not low mintage, but high paradox, not silver content like the coins hoarded, but bronze composition copper-coated zinc cores that circulated undetected for decades, making them the silent common denominator in American commerce that collectors now romanticize into micro-rarity treasure hunts where you flip through pocket change like flipping pages of a thriller novel, scanning the faintest signs of doubling near-date digits or inscriptions or rim expansion anomalies that speak to manufacturing imperfections that would ignite collector value. Next, 1980 mint mark D 1 cent USA coin emerged as a phenomenon that captured the imagination of collectors and casual treasure seekers alike. A copper-plated zinc disc of 19.05 mm in diameter, 2.5 grams in mass, valued at 1 cent in legal tender but carrying a folklore collector valuation claimed at $9 million. Not for its face value but for its story, rarity, and the emotional adrenaline it ignites in anyone who dares to examine pocket change with a magnifier. for in 1980 the United States was humming with cultural, political, and economic events that framed the backdrop of this penny's journey, from Ronald Reagan campaigning for presidency to the echoes of disco in clubs and living rooms, from new wave and rock albums spinning on turntables to small towns where local diners accepted coins as payment for burgers and sodas, where the 1980 penny passed from hand to hand. Unassuming yet destined to join the pantheon of collector lore, for the Denver Mint, identifiable by the D. Mint mark, produced billions of coins to satisfy circulation demands while experimenting with automated presses that occasionally introduced subtle errors, die wear, hub misalignments, planchet imperfections, and striking inconsistencies, leading to coins with doubled dies, off-center strikes, rim anomalies, and other irregularities that later became collector gold when magnified under optical tools such as the Bosch and Lohm Hastings triplet loop or modern USB microscopes like Dienalite. 4. Even small deviations in die pressure could create effects where Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, or the date appeared shadowed, thickened, or doubled, producing what numismatists recognized as error coins, and while most 1980 Denver cents were standard, the occasional specimen revealed slight misalignments or minting quirks that elevated its desirability exponentially, feeding folklore valuations of $9 million in the same breath as other legendary pennies that achieved multi-million-dollar folklore status. For the story of the 1980 cent is intertwined with the broader history of the Lincoln Cent series, the longest-running coin series in United States history, which began in 1909, designed by Victor David Brenner, commemorating Abraham Lincoln's 100th birthday, and over decades became not just currency but cultural artifact, a symbol of American heritage, and a playground for error coin enthusiasts who trace every detail of die alignment, planchet integrity, mint mark clarity, and circulation wear to determine rarity, for collectors understand that true value is not printed on the coin, it is assigned by the market, by mythology, by scarcity, by collector passion, and by the thrill of the hunt, for in the early 1980s, coin collecting culture had evolved from casual hobby to competitive endeavor, with organizations like the American Numismatic Association hosting conventions where coins like the 1980 cent were scrutinized, compared, and sometimes traded for thousands of dollars in circulation quality pieces, while truly exceptional error specimens found in estates, bank deposits, or accidental discoveries inspired tales of fortune and instant wealth. The idea that a single cent could carry $9 million in collector folklore becoming a powerful psychological magnet, for the Denver Mint's machinery, though precise, was human-operated and human-monitored. And human error in the planchet feeding, die alignment, and striking pressure created variations that can make a coin suddenly extraordinary, a quiet artifact that survived in circulation for decades until a collector or a casual observer noticed the faint doubling of the date numerals, a subtle off-center strike, a slight rim anomaly, or a die chip that transformed the common into the legend, and once magnified, photographed, and catalogued by online numismatic communities. The 1980 penny took its place among the pantheon of folklore million-dollar coins, inspiring generations of collectors to search piggy banks, dresser drawers, jars, and wallet change, for coin collecting thrives on discovery, speculation, and the intersection of historical context and mechanical imperfection, and the story of the 1980 cent is inseparable from the cultural and economic context of its minting, when U.S. households experienced the lingering effects of the 1970s inflation. Automotive evolution with cars like the Ford Mustang and Chevrolet Camaro symbolizing American mobility and style, popular music and television shaping daily life, and the Denver Mint humming with activity to meet the nation's coinage needs, for each coin struck represents not only currency but a story, a potential error, a chance at legendary status, and the 1980 cent exemplifies this phenomenon, for every misaligned hub, every die chip, every doubled numeral or shadowed inscription became fodder for collector excitement. Auctions at venues like Great Collections, eBay, and live shows where coins are authenticated by PCGS and dealers belonging to P&G could turn ordinary cents into million-dollar folklore discussions, and while the literal legal tender remains 1 cent, folklore valuation assigns it $9 million, symbolizing scarcity, demand, condition, and error strength, with the emotional thrill of discovery acting as a multiplier for perceived value, for coins are tactile artifacts, social connectors, historical witnesses, and collectors' dreams minted in copper and zinc, circulating silently through decades, touching hands in homes, businesses, schools, fairs, and markets, until discovery transforms the mundane into legend, and the 1980 penny, with its subtle mint mark, potential double-die obverse, rim anomalies, and circulation quirks, embodies this principle perfectly, inspiring collectors to scrutinize each penny under magnifiers. Organize albums like the Whitman Classic Coin Album, compare with verified specimens, consult online forums, and follow auction results. To understand market perception, for coin culture is a complex interplay of history, manufacturing nuance, collector psychology, and storytelling, and the 1980 cent is a living example, a 1-cent coin that represents $9 million in folklore valuation, an emotional, historical, and mechanical artifact that continues to inspire collectors to this day, connecting generations, economic eras, and cultural moments, encouraging treasure hunting, careful examination, and the understanding that small objects can carry enormous stories, that errors can become legends, that history can live in the palm of your hand, and that every coin has the potential to reveal secrets of production, circulation, and collector desire, for in the digital age, platforms like YouTube, Instagram, eBay, and online numismatic forums amplify these stories, creating viral narratives where a single 1980 penny can generate excitement, auctions, and folklore valuation claims in the millions, bridging the gap between ordinary currency and legendary artifact, making coin collecting both a tactile hobby and a mental thrill, a treasure hunt in everyday life, an exploration of imperfection that becomes desirable, and a testament to human fascination with rarity, error, and potential wealth. And for those searching through change today, the lesson is clear: look carefully, examine under magnification, consider historical context, and imagine the potential, because the next 1980 cent could be waiting in your pocket, jar, drawer, or collection to join the folklore narrative, inspire awe, and claim a place in the $9 million legend. And if you've followed this story, hit like, subscribe, share with fellow collectors, start examining your pennies, and never underestimate the hidden value in the smallest denominations, for error coins, mint mark curiosities, and mechanical imperfections are where the magic and mythology of coin collecting thrive.